Next on Current News, a rally for life.
Young people in Manhattan today joined 6 other cities across the country in spreading a pro-life message. I'm Emily Druby. That's coming up.
Plus, an hours-long landmark summit between President Joe Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Several major issues discussed. U.S. bishops kick off their spring assembly, debating key issues for the church, including who should receive the Eucharist. And a first of its kind in New York City.
A spiritual explosion, that Jesus' presence right here at any time in the city that never sleeps.
We'll take you to the perpetual ADORATION chapel, which will soon open to serve the faithful. The news starts right now. Students gathering to fight for the unborn in New York City, one of 7 groups in 7 different cities nationwide rallying for life. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. Students for Life are urging Catholic leaders to continue to take courageous action to protect the preborn. Emily Druby went to their rally in Manhattan, has more about the group's message.
You can see we're in front of St. Patrick, Old St. Patrick's Cathedral.
A live stream connecting this New York City group with others across the nation, all with the same mission, to fight for life.
We're going to the Planned Parenthood.
Pro-life organization Students for Life also holding rallies in LA, Tyler, Texas, Kansas City, San Francisco, Chicago, and Washington. The event helping to unify the movement, explains group leader Lauren MARLOWE.
Doing live streams and being active on social media is a really good way to show people and connect people and get them to understand that you're not alone in this.
They gathered together after many rallies were forced to go virtual this past year, including the March for Life.
There's just going to be this huge resurgence. Young people are hungry to get back out here and proclaim truth again on the streets, in the field, where it matters the most.
Another group leader, Kate Maloney, explains the rally was to thank the Catholic leaders who continuously fight for the unborn and send a pro-life message to those at the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops meeting who will soon discuss if abortion-supporting politicians can partake in the Eucharist.
We just want to urge the bishops to fight for life in a really positive and encouraging way, and to know that we are praying for them because they are our fathers.
The group asking Catherine Donahoe to speak. She runs the Bridge to Life, a crisis pregnancy center in the Diocese of Brooklyn.
Empower them to be able to provide for their families.
Proving through action that this really is the pro-life generation.
The abortion industry's done an amazing job at the horrible act of making it seem like our entire generation is pro-choice, and that's not true at all.
According to Gallup, 39% of people 18 to 34 years old are pro-life. Spreading their message through the trendy and young streets of Manhattan's Nolita. They started at the Old St. Patrick's on Mulberry Street and finished 2 blocks away in front of a Planned Parenthood, where they solemnly reflected, the younger generation proving that the fight for life will continue with them. In Manhattan, Emily Druby, Current News.
Meanwhile, U.S. bishops are encouraging Catholics to take the pro-life fight to Capitol Hill. This as President Biden's proposed budget scrapped the Hyde Amendment, a measure that prevents your taxpayer dollars from going towards abortions. The Bishop of Brooklyn, Nicholas DiMarzio, wants Catholics in his diocese to reach out to their lawmakers and demand the amendment be preserved.
Senator Hyde had this put in, and it withstood the ravages of time and different administrations, that no taxpayer money would go to fund abortions. We can't stop abortions completely, but it's unfair to say that we're going to take taxpayer money where people don't agree with it to use it to destroy life.
And you can help protect the Hyde Amendment and save innocent lives. Just head on over to notaxpayerabortion.com and sign the petition. We'll have more on the United States Bishops meeting Emily discussed in just a moment. But first, the highly anticipated summit in Geneva. Biden and Putin, 4 hours of discussions behind closed doors.
We should be able to cooperate where it's in our mutual interest.
Superpower summits were once about nukes. Now it's cyber weapons.
Who, to what degree, needs to take on responsibility? That should be resolved during the negotiation process.
Current News with the breakdown of the historic talk and what's next for America's relationship with Russia. I did what I came to do. That's how President Joe Biden described his summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The world is watching and weighing what handshakes and head nods could mean for two countries with relations described as being at a low point. Emily Schmidt reports on what's at stake.
In an 18th century Geneva chateau, a chance to check the firmness of a 21st century foundation.
This is about how we move from here.
I don't think there was any kind of hostility.
President Biden said earlier this week his plan with Putin was
Verify first and then trust.
Trust is strained by issues like Russia's handling of human rights and ransomware attacks in the U.S. launched by Russian-based criminals.
Responsible countries need to take action against criminals who conduct ransomware activities on their territory.
As far as cybersecurity is concerned, we agreed that we would both begin consultations on that issue, and I believe that is extraordinarily important. And obviously, both sides have to assume certain obligations there.
The leaders agreed to return U.S. and Russian ambassadors to their positions. The relationship between countries had been so difficult lately, there was no ambassador in place in Washington or Moscow.
I think that everything to do with the deterioration of our mutual relations was initiated not by us, but by the U.S.
I told President Putin my agenda is not against Russia or anyone else. It's for the American people.
The spin on what happened here came from one leader, then the other, each trying to get the last word on the next chapter of U.S.-Russian relations. Emily Schmidt, Currents News.
Back to our big story tonight. Today marked the first day of the United States Bishops' Spring Assembly. The bishops opened up discussion for more than a half hour whether the Catholic leaders should have more time to speak on the topic of pro-abortion leaders receiving communion. The head of the Bishops' Conference, Archbishop Jose Gomez, in his pre-recorded address, warned about mixing church and politics.
We are living in a secular society where politics is becoming the substitute religion for a lot of people. So we need to guard against the temptation to think about the church in simply political terms.
By the end of the bishops' discussion, the motion to extend the communion conversation was denied. To break today's events down for us, we're joined now by John Lavenberg, the national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux. And John, it's nice to have you here in studio.
Nice to be here, Christine.
So the first question I want to ask you, there's been lots of reports in secular media today saying bishops will decide whether President Biden and other Catholics will be allowed to receive communion, but that's not actually the case. Bishops aren't voting on this, right? What's happening?
So what the bishops are actually doing is they're voting on whether or not to draft a document on the meaning of the Eucharist in the church. It's not a document that is going to be aimed at President Biden or any other Catholic for that matter. It's just a document, they're calling it a teaching document that discusses the meaning of the Eucharist in the church.
So ultimately, the decision of whether or not somebody receives communion is up to the individual bishop. Isn't that correct?
That's correct, Christine. It's actually something that's in canon law, canon 915 to be exact, and it's something that Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone has spoken about, and he actually wrote a recent pastoral letter on the topic of Eucharistic coherence. And so basically, the Bishops' Conference, they cannot, and they will not in this case, vote on whether or not an individual person is fit to receive the Eucharist. That's up to that person's local bishop. So for example, in the case of President Biden, Cardinal Wilton Gregory has already said that he will not bar President Biden from communion.
All right, interesting. Now, we actually spoke with Archbishop Cordileone after he released that pastoral letter. He had this message for pro-abortion politicians. Let's listen.
Please stop the killing. This is killing innocent human life. You have a very prominent position in society. You can influence societal attitudes and practices. You're in a position to do something to stop the killing. Please stop the killing. Please recognize the evil for what it is. Please have a change of heart and come back to the fullness of your Catholic faith.
Those are some strong words, and it just goes to show that there is a difference of opinions among bishops, right?
It does, and there is a difference of opinion amongst bishops, and it's really been something that's been going on since President Biden was elected. You have some that say he should be barred from communion because of his abortion support. Others say that it's a weaponization of the Eucharist and it serves to be divisive. It was culminated in a letter to Archbishop Gomez recently that said that this discussion should hold because they're not ready to have it yet. And that really was at the center of the start of the bishops' meeting today, where they kind of went back and forth about 15 bishops, and a lot of those in favor also brought up the Congregation of Doctrine of the Faith prefect, Cardinal Luis Ladaria, who and he wrote a letter on this topic.
Right. All right. Let's take a look at an excerpt from that letter. It says this congregation notes that such a policy, given its possibly contentious nature, could have the opposite effect and become a source of discord rather than unity within the episcopate and the larger church in the United States. Can you elaborate more on that?
Sure. And he was sending that letter in response to what he has seen and what we have all seen between the bishops kind of going back and forth on this. And so he is basically urging them to proceed with caution when it comes to this issue. Some of the other things he mentioned include developing a national policy on the topic should be unanimous. He said developing the national policy must also include a dialogue between the bishops and the pro-choice politicians. And something to note, at the start of the spring meeting, Bishop Kevin Rhodes, who is the head of the Doctrine Committee, actually said that there is no national policy in this document.
All right, and I know there's plenty more topics that they're going to be discussing. John Lavenberg, national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, thanks for being here, and we'll check back in with you tomorrow.
Thank you for having me.
John will be here all week covering the bishops' virtual meeting. Remember, tomorrow they're set to discuss a much anticipated topic, whether pro-abortion politicians can receive the Eucharist. Again, John will have all that information tomorrow right here on Currents News. Despite the president's public opposition to capital punishment, the Biden administration is urging the Supreme Court to reinstate the death penalty for the Boston Marathon bomber. Last year, a lower court threw out the 27-year-old's death sentence, citing issues in jury selection. Now the High Court is scheduled to reconsider the ruling in the fall. However, the Archdiocese of Boston is instead calling for life in prison without parole, writing in part, "The pain and suffering caused to the victims of the bombing and to their loved ones is as clear and real today as it was nearly 8 years ago. As we have previously stated, Catholic teaching does not support the taking of life as a means of achieving justice." The FBI is still investigating hundreds of suspects for their roles in the January 6th Capitol riot, calling the effort one of the most far-reaching and extensive investigations in the Bureau's history. The director of the FBI says roughly 500 suspects have already been arrested, and the Bureau is currently investigating hundreds of leads. With less than a week to go before the city's mayoral primaries, the race is getting even tighter. According to a poll conducted by the Marist Institute for Public Opinion, Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams is in the lead with 24%, following behind Catherine Garcia at 17%. In third is former council to current mayor Bill de Blasio, Maya Wiley. She has 15%. And in fourth is former presidential candidate Andrew Yang with 13%. If you're on the fence about who to vote for, no worries. The Diocese of Brooklyn sent each candidate a questionnaire with topics important to Catholic voters, and it will be available in this week's tablet. Currents News spoke with Bishop DiMarzio about why he decided on the initiative.
I would say most of them came back with very positive answers, which is good. That means that whoever gets in seems to understand our issues. One of them was equal treatment to our children in our Catholic schools, equal treatment on having nurses in the schools and security, all the issues that really touch us a lot. They all came back saying positive. Let's see, we'll hold their feet to the fire if whoever gets in. You said you believed in it, you were going to do it, so we have to work on that.
Again, that Diocese of Brooklyn questionnaire will be in this coming edition of the tablet, which you can either pick up in church or subscribe to it at thetablet.org. There's a lot more news headed your way. The city that never sleeps is getting a chapel that never closes.
Encountering Christ day or night in the heart of New York City. I'm Jessica Easthope with the first of its kind Adoration Chapel coming to Manhattan.
Plus, the Knights of Columbus has a new leader whose mission is to get parishioners back in the pews, how he plans to do that, and how Catholic leaders are trying to spread peace in the Middle East.
There are now some big changes to the tablet website. You can get personalized access to the Catholic news you value. Sign up for free at thetablet.org.
It's being called a spiritual game changer. A perpetual adoration chapel is being built in Manhattan. It's located in Greenwich Village and should open next year. Jessica Easthope traveled to the future site of the chapel and has a preview for us.
The city that never sleeps is getting a chapel that never closes. Among the hustle and bustle, this blue door is leading the way to something Manhattan has never seen before.
This will be a place where people can find the mercy, the healing, the spiritual growth that people are so hungry for. This is going to be it. This room will be transformed.
Right now, it's just a music room, but soon at the rectory of St. Joseph's Church on 6th Avenue in Greenwich Village, Manhattan will have its first 24-hour adoration chapel. Over the last several weeks, Washington Square Park and the surrounding Greenwich Village have been plagued with violence. 2 people have been stabbed, 1 man robbed, and another assaulted. Father Boniface says as crime is bubbling up, the chapel will serve as a sanctuary at a time when New York City needs it most.
Violence, crime, disorder are much higher down here in Greenwich Village than they were before. What I see going on is the great woundedness of our culture today and the desperate need for God and His grace.
With the support of Cardinal Dolan in the Archdiocese, St. Joseph's raised $600,000 for the chapel.
Root screen right here.
Colin Nakaza, the director for Young Adult Outreach for the Archdiocese, says the chapel, though only big enough to fit about 25 people at a time, will have the power to draw in the masses and end the chaos on the city's streets.
His mercy is going to go right through that Eucharist into the entire neighborhood. And so yeah, I almost can guarantee that you're going to see a slow change with the violence and everything that's been happening around here.
Construction is expected to start by the end of the summer and the chapel finished in time for Easter. In Manhattan, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
From a new chapel to a new Supreme Knight.
I am proud to install you as Supreme Knight of the Order of the Knights of Columbus. With all the rights, responsibilities, and
the Knights of Columbus has a new leader. Over the weekend, Patrick Kelly was installed as the 14th Supreme Knight of the world's largest Catholic fraternal service organization. The ceremonial mass took place at St. Mary's Parish in New Haven, Connecticut, and was celebrated by the Supreme Chaplain of the Knights, Archbishop William Lori of Baltimore. Patrick Kelly joins us now. So Patrick, as the new Supreme Knight, I know you said your most important mission is to get people back to church now that the pandemic is nearing an end. How do you plan to do that?
Well, thanks, Christine. Thanks for having me. As many people know, I mean, the Knights is a parish-based organization, and we are very, very committed to getting our parishes and helping our pastors get parishioners back in the pews after COVID. We're coming out of COVID, and I think many people got out of the habit of going to church on Sundays. And so the Knights of Columbus is committed to helping our pastors with that and doing a myriad of things to really help our parishes recover and get us back to normal.
Our bishop here in Brooklyn, Nicholas DiMarzio, released a pastoral letter earlier this month about the importance of the Eucharist. You both have similar ideals here. I want to play a clip of what he had to say.
If we ever needed to come to the Eucharist, now is the time. There's so much that burden that this pandemic has put on us, but the relief can come through the Eucharist. It will help us shoulder these burdens and see that somehow there's good coming out of even this terrible pandemic.
Do you agree no better time than now?
I do agree that there's no better time than now. I think one of the things that the pandemic has taught us is, as Catholics, the centrality of the Eucharist in our lives. And for so long, we didn't have the Eucharist in person. I spoke in my installation about St. Joseph, it being the year of St. Joseph, and I talked about St. Joseph as guardian of the truth. And that truth that he guarded was Jesus Christ, the truth incarnate. And I think as Catholics and as Knights, we need to have this reverence for the Eucharist, that it really is a source of unity for us, and we need it more than ever.
You also talk about how the Catholic family is under attack. How so, and how are the Knights of Columbus helping to fight this threat?
I think the Catholic family is under a very serious strain right now. I think it's no secret that the Catholic family, that is to say the Catholic husband and wife that are trying to keep their marriage healthy and raise their kids in the faith, this is a challenge because the culture is very hostile to our beliefs. So it's for the average Catholic family, this is a challenge. The Knights of Columbus want to be there for that Catholic family and help them. We've recently put out a video called Into the Breach, which was a 12-part video series which showed Catholic men, what does it mean to be a Catholic man? What does it mean to raise your children in the Catholic faith? We're working on a second series on the family and on fatherhood that will augment a lot of that and really help families with this, what I would say an existential struggle that they have right now.
Sounds like it should be a really big help. Patrick Kelly, Supreme Knight of the Knights of Columbus, thanks for being here and congratulations.
Thank you, Christine.
To the Holy Land now, where tensions are escalating. Israel's military carried out a series of airstrikes on Gaza Wednesday. The attacks come after Hamas militants launched balloons carrying explosives into Israel, sparking 20 fires in the southern part of the country. This is the first time the rival forces have traded blows since last month's ceasefire and comes just days after Israel elected a new prime minister. In hopes of fostering peace in the region, the Latin Patriarchate of Jerusalem has introduced the new initiative, Peace Day for the East. And to kick off the annual event, Catholic bishops will consecrate the Middle East to the Holy Family on June 27th, where they will bless a painting of the Holy Family and send it on a pilgrimage around the Middle East and over to Rome. Still to come on Currents News, Pope Francis jumps on the pandemic bandwagon, why the pontiff now owns a bike. Plus, pedaling through the priesthood. Wait until you hear how many years a Brooklyn priest has been on the job. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. Pope Francis has a brand new bike. The Holy Father received the gift from Egan Bernal, the winner of a multi-stage bicycle race known as the Tour of Italy. The bike is painted in the colors of the Argentinian flag with the Pope's coat of arms on the top tube. The Colombian also gave the pontiff a signed pink jersey. And finally tonight, a happy anniversary to a retired Brooklyn priest and Navy chaplain, Monsignor Robert Ecker, celebrating 70 years of priesthood with over 30 years serving the Navy. A mass in honor of the milestone anniversary was held at Sacred Heart Parish in Coronado, California. Monsignor Ecker now resides and serves at the Church of the Immaculate Conception in San Diego. Congratulations to him. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. I hope to see you again next time.